go for holidays, so no holidays. And we are all glued into our 5-inch or probably 72-inch monitors, wondering what the future beholds for all of us. Yeah, I don't have a 72-inch, but yeah, some of you might have. But the point is saying that, okay, when there are no consumers to transact, the whole question is saying that, okay, how do brands stay relevant? What is going to be the future of brands in this new world order? What is the future of advertising agencies, most importantly? So will every brand start shifting their focus to becoming a value brand, wanting to belong in the essentials category? We'll have to wait and watch. So a lot of questions. But yes, firstly, let's survive through this period. I'm sure this too will pass soon, and let's hope to get back to normalcy as soon as possible. So we at Ad Club was looking for an expert who could possibly throw some light on all these and more. And there we suddenly, or there appeared Vincent, like God sent, in front of Tina, one of our management committee members. And he said, hey, hello, here I am, and I'll help you all. So before Vincent starts off a session, I'll quickly take this opportunity to briefly explain what the Ad Club Bangalore does and what our plans are and why do we exist and stuff like that. Not to bore you all, but it is important that you all know that we exist and we can help you in so many ways other than just this webinar today. So like I said, these are tough times where we all need to stand united, stand for each other. And we need to be standing for each other more than ever. And as an industry body, we wanted to bring all of you together on one platform like today's webinar to share some best practices which experts and companies are following across the globe. And that is why we have got Vincent today. And so you all could apply the best practice into your respective businesses starting today. We also want to take inputs from each one of you and be the collective voice of the advertising and media industry to the government as well as the decision makers at large. We do have enough and more of challenges, starting with cash flows, not knowing whether to cut salaries of our people, fire people or not not knowing what will be our relevance in the new world order. So irrespective of whatever we do and irrespective of the course correction which we are going to do, we really need help from our government to survive through this period. So what we have done is we have initiated a survey and a study of sorts, and to basically understand what each of your pain points are. And I, as the president of Ad Club, I would request all of you to take part in this survey and give us pointers wherein we can go back to the government, we can go back to the decision makers as one holistic voice of the industry. So requesting each one of you to please take the survey, which is there on the Ad Club pages, website, as well as social media pages. The Ad Club handle has pasted those links in the chat window too. So you could just click on those links. If you're a CMO, there is another link. If you're an agency head, there is a separate link which is there. So request you to take those surveys now or after. For all the non-members who are here, we are inviting you. We need you. We need you. We are inviting you to become members of the Ad Club. We need you more of you on our side. We need you to give us perspectives in terms of what needs to be done and what need not be done. And we also want you to get involved in the activities, what we plan to do too. Just to give you a glimpse, we like the survey initiative, what we've done, we also plan to do a lineup of a series of webinars in the coming days, which will touch upon many relevant topics pertaining to advertising, branding, marketing, media, entertainment, and whatnot. So we will try and cover as much as possible. So do go to the Ad Club website and become a member today. And also follow us on our social media pages too, because we're hoping that we will come up with we are planning to do a lot more activity there. So before I introduce Vincent, let me share some house rules so everybody is in alignment with the entire session. Firstly, I request all of you to mute your mics to avoid any disturbances, interruption when the talk is going on. If you don't mute, our host is going to mute you. Just in case, if you drop off in between, or if there are any power outages, we request you to log on to the same Zoom call link again. It is the same link, so you don't need to change. You can come back onto the same link to rejoin again. In case if you are finding trouble to log on to the Zoom calls, remember we are streaming this live on the Ad Club Facebook page, so you can go there and watch it too. So anybody or any of your friends are pinging you and saying that they're not able to log on, please tell them to go to the Ad Club Bangalore Facebook page, and we are streaming this live there too. Whatever questions you have, please type the same in the chat window, and we will surely see how to cover most of the same during the later part of the session. We will try just doing justice to cover most of those things, but just in case, if your question is not answers, don't scream at us, don't abuse us, but instead, just request you to go back to the comment section of the Ad Club Facebook live feed and post your questions there. And you can be rest assured that your questions will be answered by Vincent himself. If you want to get in touch with Vincent directly, you can very easily find him. Just Google Vincent Dong and you will find his website and contact details there. So he'll be more than happy to chat up with you otherwise. So coming to the most important part, Vincent. Yes, I almost forgot that he's here. So Vincent Dong, Vince, as he is famously known, is one of the most sought after consultants in the West. He founded the only boutique accounting and consulting practice in the marketing and communication industry 30 years ago in Toronto. He's worked with umpteen number of agencies in the US as well as Canada. And throughout his career in accounting, Vince's only focus and expertise has been on the marketing and communications industry. He served on the board of directors for National Advertising Benevolent Society as treasurer for 8 years. He's written enough a number of articles for various marketing magazines. He's been a speaker at many agency seminars, and like I said, consultant to many agencies too. This experience, combined with 30 years career working exclusively in the North American marketing and communication industry, delivers insight at once vast and focused, resulting in unparalleled financial and organizational advice. Vince advice. So here we are. Here we have Vincent for you. Hope all of you are ready to get disaster proofed. So over to you, Vincent. Stage is all yours. Shraval, you'll have to unmute him.
Thank you very much, Like. You may want to share your screen as we speak. And I just wanted to add one additional comment to the presentation today. As a CPA, I'm very, very touched to be in the industry because I was able to speak marketing lingo only after 30 years, because the last thing I ever want to do is speak to an owner in accounting terminology, in balance sheets and income statements. And I knew that no ad agency owner was ever going to be able to speak to me in accounting speak. So I decided to change my vernacular and help agency principals, owners, senior managers, and the like accordingly. In a very unique way, I don't just bring finance and accounting to the table. I bring agency operations, finance and accounting, and certainly software into the mix, because every agency has to have software in order to get their work done, see where the work is, account for everything, etc. So if you want to slip to the next slide, that would be great. Like,
yep.
My question back to you, Like, is will everyone have access to this PowerPoint presentation?
We will make it access. We will give them access.
Super.
So
all of my contact information is in here as well. So all that Like said, I will save time and not repeat this particular slide. but this is the brief bio of what I did. And I was at a seminar last year presenting to a couple of hundred agencies, and a person came up to me and said, Vince, this is amazing. All that you do for the industry. I'm really interested in getting involved. How do I do this? And I said to the participant, like, it's really easy. It just takes 25 years. So if you would slide to the next slide, please. I suppose many of you in India do pay a little bit of attention to the United States of America. And in March, I had done a presentation to 700 ad agencies through their webinar site called Ad Week, which is how Tina and I ended up being in contact with each other afterwards. And the text in the second body of paragraph where it says disaster, COVID-19 will be the one worldwide word no one will ever forget. I was born a survivor. The last thing I was going to do was to run and hide. I said to myself, I have many ad agencies to help. I have to step up to the plate, and I have to develop something for my clients as quickly as possible. And it was very timely for Tina to have met me. So we have a number of things to share with everyone today. And what I would normally have done was, in my presentation, it was not such a disastrous situation happening, yet the intent of the original presentation was to talk about recession-proofing your agency. The Bangalore Ad Agency Association said, do you think you could add some more important issues that affect all of us right now, especially as we do not have anywhere near the government financing, support, or funding that the USA has pushed out? And I can't even wrap my head around how President Trump is pushing out more than $1 trillion into the US economy to prop up the economy. And I have to rewind and say, $1 trillion, that's the equivalent of 1,000 billion dollars. I could never spend $1 billion in my entire lifetime. So that's 1,000 of them. It's important for them to kickstart all of this. And for that very reason, I'm going to have you move to the next slide, number 4. So where it says 10 immediate steps for the next 90 days is something that I had to specifically insert for this presentation today, because normally recessions happen every 10, 12 years, and I would have started my presentation under the big picture matters, 11 specific action items, 5 proactive stability tips, 4 prudent thinking ideas, and 5 final thoughts. In our situation today, as Like said, if all of you take away one thing today in the presentation, I will be grateful for the time that you spent listening to me. And this is my give back to the industry, to the community, because many agencies that are large and small do not know what on earth to do because they just don't know what's ahead of them. And there is the point about having the 10 immediate steps. So I'm going to move straight to the 10 immediate steps first, for all of us to manage things in the next 90 days. And I'll speak about them. And incidentally, just for the question period, I don't know whether everyone's formulating questions and writing on the right side, or are they holding questions until the very end? Like, that was just a question back to you.
No, they're going to put it into the chat window, and we are curating it, and we will bring it back to you towards the end. So
super. Okay. So never has there been a time for the Vice President of Finance, the Controller, the Senior Accountant, the CFO to work hand in hand with the owner. And if the owner is essentially not only the new business director, the account director, as well as the head finance person. These are 10 things that absolutely I'm implementing with my agency clients right now. You'll be very surprised to hear that any number of ad agency owners truly do not know how much it costs for them to run their agency each and every month. So the first thing had to do with what are the total costs as it relates to your human beings in the shop, including salaries, benefits, and contract labor, and your other overheads, the rent that you have to pay, whatever travel expenses you have, administrative costs, but do not include media and production because they are simply just passing through on the way to the client to be billed. Once you know that number, you can make a number of decisive decisions moving forward from there. Not only can you may likely have to make a number of decisive decisions. For those of you that have current financial information, we are then going to move into finding out just how much free cash, unencumbered cash that you may actually have in order to divide by the monthly outlays. Incidentally, in North America, we call that the nut. In other words, what is that single dollar amount that you need to have to keep going each and every month? And we do basic divisional math. If you have 1 month's cash flow, if you have 2 months cash flow, if you have 9 months cash flow, that second thing gives you an understanding of where you stand from a health standpoint in order for you, again, to make some eventual decisive decisions. I have found number 3 extremely beneficial for my agency clients, and it's more to see the most recent history of your spending patterns as well as the history of your collection patterns. And I use October, November, December of 2019, as well as Jan, Feb, and March of 2020, just to see how the different seasonality patterns are in relationship to those 6 months in question. And for the more prudent agencies that I'm working with, they are doing everything they can to keep their staff, and therefore they're delaying as many things as they can at the overhead level. And that may mean going to the landlord and asking for a 3-month deferral in terms of how much you have to spend right now. And again, this is immediate steps for the next 90 days. Like, if I can, let me just finish off this. You jumped ahead, may I jump you back to the last screen, please? That was my mistake for not mentioning number 4. So if you can push back to the, yes. So now that you know how much it costs you to run, how many dollars you've got left from a cash flow perspective, what your historical spending was, let's prepare a 3-month cash flow and see how much cash we will have at the end of June. And this doesn't just talk about the monthly outlay, because that's the easy part. It also talks about how soon you'll be able to collect the money from your clients, and maybe just how slowly you'll be paying your vendors at this stage. Okay, that's point number 4. Now, may I have you turn to the next slide, please? The number 5 point is a heartfelt comment. Everyone on this screen is probably either an owner, a senior staff member, an account director, somebody in a decision-making role. And with it comes the fruits of your labors in terms of obtaining benefits, like bonuses each and every year. And equally, and rarely is the instance where you have to bear all of the risks in the ownership or the partial ownership of your company. In doing so, I have recommended to all of my agency clients, and typically the largest salary on the income statement is the owner's salary, as a show of good faith, as a show of saving their company, and as a show of leadership to immediately reduce your own salary, if not 100%, but significant enough to save everything else in the meantime. optically, the last thing you want to do is not cut your salary, continue to take it, and then have to let go a whole pile of other staff. And that certainly is not a team approach to keeping your agency going. Point number 6, how you cut salaries is also going to be key in the way in which you are perceived in your company. And there will need to be decisions on how to cut staff. And I always recommend hitting the senior staff first and then the rest of the agency. It may also be a wonderful time for you to take different approaches to looking at how productive, how qualitatively good your staff are. Perhaps this is a good time also to say to yourself, certain people have not been that productive all this time. Unfortunately, in terms of the new world order, they may not likely be part of our organization because they simply just are not as productive as possible. When I refer to the financial modeling exercise, previous to point number 4 about preparing a cash flow, this modeling concept has to do with, if we don't have that much cash by the end of June, what do we do to reduce expenses accordingly so that we've got more than enough cash to carry us through for the next 3 months commencing July 1st? And that may mean modeling different salary cuts, modeling different salary reductions, modeling terminations, particularly modeling the owner's salary as it relates to that cash flow analysis. Point number 7. Inevitably, the less strong your agency is, and as a result, in America and North America, we go on a ratio calculation to see how healthy you are of 50, 30, 20 against adjusted gross income. And adjusted gross income is gross billing minus your reimbursable costs to get to the adjusted gross income number. That number is what we use the basis of our 50, 30, 20 rule. And presumably all of you are in this business to earn a profit. And in our North American continent, we use 50, 30, 20 in the following ratios. 50% should be the maximum against the AGI number for salaries and benefits. 30% should be the maximum number for the remaining overheads. 20% should be the profit to the corporation. And I have found the more profitable an agency is, the less the overheads are, certainly moving towards more like a 30% profit figure. And that being said, is when you look at your income statement, if you are not necessarily even anywhere near there, you've got other things to worry about beyond just the cutting of salaries, okay? And when I said in this last sentence, consideration needs to be given to employee productivity metrics, the more sophisticated software programs do offer employee billability, realization, productivity, revenue per employee. And I'm talking more from a management accounting perspective instead of a financial reporting perspective. May I have you move to the next slide, please? Mike? Thank you. Anyone that's on this call today, I have a fairly good feeling that most of you are self-employed. You're not part of the big, large multinationals. I can get into a separate discussion from that later. And if your balance sheet is not as strong as it should be, and I typically recommend 3 months of cash flow for any agency at any given time, and now more than ever before, there should be 3 months of cash flow. But if your cash flow is insufficient and you have determined that you don't have enough money in the corporation, you're going to have to ask yourself, at your station in life, given the organization as it is, and you've got some cleaning up to do in your own company anyway, are you prepared to lend money to your corporation for the next 3 months in an effort to shore up the cash flow? There may be those on the call today where they have actually negative cash flow, and that's going to be another discussion altogether, because it's no longer just disaster proofing, it's more survival based. And we can have a separate discussion offline for those of you that are in that situation. Okay. Like you were mentioning earlier about the participation of the survey with every agency. What I will say about the North American governments is that they are scrambling every day of the week, and both the Prime Minister of Canada and the President of the United States are on TV, on webinars every day at between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, not only regarding case loads, but more so, this is what the government is doing for you today. The faster you as an organization can mobilize a united front in terms of saying, we represent an industry that is critical for the well-being of India, to the government, the faster they should be able to update themselves. However, just like North America, the funding programs are now electronically available to apply to. It may be 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks before the money gets into the economy. And you're still on your own at that point in time. So when you look at points 1 through 8, point number 9 is equally important for all of you to stay glued to, but without banking on the expectation that that money is going to happen in the next 24 or 48 hours. Point number 10. I have a suspicion that everyone is having some slight sleep at night issues. What will be tomorrow. What may happen next week. Some of us may actually be increasing our alcohol consumption of late. And then I heard the very really funny Instagram posting the other day, and a gentleman was interviewing a man, and the gentleman said, now that the COVID crisis is in place here, sir, you have 2 options. Option A, you have to stay home with your spouse and children. Option B, and he didn't even finish the sentence, the person said, B. And what that told me was that owners in the agency world, because you are so amazing at what you do from a marketing standpoint, have to step up to be that calm, purposeful, thoughtful leader, and not show signs of the inner stress that you may or possibly may not have. And you will be remembered, and I have said this to Like as well, you will be remembered for what you did do, and you will also be remembered for what you did not do. And whether this is stepping up to your staff, stepping up to your clients, stepping up to your family, and I say this is a time to be innovative, inspiring, creative. I'm a firm believer that this crisis will cease. And I watched a video about Shanghai last night where people were finally coming out onto the street. Certainly a number of them were wearing masks. Restaurants were opening again. This is not the end of the world. So with that being said, I'm going to move to the next slide, where it says big picture, preparing for a recession. This is what I presented actually not only in March to the Ad Week participants on the webinar. I also presented the same recession-proofing seminar to 30 ad agencies back in February in person. And strangely enough, I did it for 1 hour, and immediately 1 hour after my presentation, the Dow Jones stock market dropped 900 points. And they all looked at me and said, "Did you forecast this?" I said, "Not in the slightest did I forecast this." Nevertheless, though, the timing is the timing. Some of you are probably way too young to remember 2008, and that's a good 12 years ago when there was a recession. Inevitably, we all have business cycles, economic cycles that go up and that go down. And so I'm going to talk about a number of points regarding big picture and then go right back into a number of takeaway points. I was asked earlier this week, Vince, we have a business plan that we created in the fall of last year. Do we stick to it or do we not stick to it? During a recession period, certainly stick to your business plan. During a situation that we've got right now, you're going to have to veer off that business plan and get back into a more survival or disaster-based plan, much of which I discussed earlier in the 10 points from the previous slides. Never has there been a time before for you as owners to take a look and review and understand the numbers that are being presented to you. Many agency owners just leave that information to their finance people and they think, well, if I've got money in the bank, I'm good. It is your responsibility to know your numbers, not just the CFOs. They prepare them, and incidentally, the quantitative part is the easy part because they're there to be paid to prepare all this information. It's the qualitative part that they ought to equally provide to you so that you can understand more than just the numbers that are being presented. We said earlier about the 50-30-20 rule, and everyone should know that the biggest expense in your company relative to your AGI happens to be your payroll. And it would be interesting for everyone to take a look at their payroll costs month after month after month, as early as January of 2019 to where it is as of March 2020, to see if it is in the neighborhood of 50%. For those of you that are using more sophisticated software programs, the ability to have a client profit and loss report is available. The ability to have employee productivity and recoverability reporting is available. It is not enough just to take a look at your income statement and balance sheet as you go about your business on a month-to-month basis. Where I said consider sensitivity analysis on your forecast. In February, I said this to the 30 ad agencies, and I'm not making this up. I said to them all, hypothetically speaking, you may want to show a modeling on Excel that sees your revenue drop by 25, 35, and 45%. Now, this was in February. And the ad agencies said, sure, okay. And 1 month later, I started getting calls from these participants, and they said, how did you know? And I said, I didn't know, but it was something to mention because we've never ever had revenue drops before of this magnitude. The last bullet point on this particular slide talks about keeping an eye on your client's financial status. It's not the easiest thing for you to zig and zag while you're worrying about your work at the office, your staff, your family, and that. But very quietly, if one of your clients completely goes dark on you, doesn't pay you, doesn't respond to your emails, doesn't even respond to your telephone calls, this is certainly something to reach out to them for, to say, Tina, is everything okay? And for those of you that don't have a huge client roster, much less time is required. For those of you that have many clients, why not divide and conquer and have some of your senior staff reach out to these people so that internally, you know that you will collect some money from some of these clients and you will not collect money from some of these clients, because that affects the first 10 points in the disaster proofing component of this presentation. Slide number 9, please. Again, we're talking about big picture concepts for your agency. When I talked about getting a hold of your clients to see how they were doing financially, this also goes hand in hand with not being perceived as being selfish, but also saying, hey, if some of you have healthcare organizations, hospitals, cosmetic surgery places, et cetera, why not consider creating any number of COVID-based public relations communications to say that you're here for, your clients are here for their clients, et cetera, et cetera. I've seen a lot of that happening in North America, and that is certainly your responsibility. It is not the client's responsibility, because they are already themselves in panic. And the more you can show that you've got a cooler head to prevail, to help your client that way, the more they will remember you moving forward. If you have to cut payroll, try a few other things. And these other things may mean salary cuts. And when I mean cut payroll, I mean terminate people or lay off people. There could be all kinds of expenses relating to employees that you are currently paying for in terms of allowances, education, development. Look at all of those costs, because they will actually add up to a dollar value that is worthy of managing over the next 3 months. Have a cash reserve. And in this call right now, many people may be thinking to themselves, the last thing I have any time for right now is going after new business. This period of time in the world's history is also an opportunity for those of you that have the intestinal fortitude to stand up to say, we ought to go after certain businesses, because marketing is going to be required more than ever before, particularly when people are glued to their computer right now at home. And once again, you can take a leadership role moving forward. Another big picture item has to do with your staff. Many of you have large employee groups, and is anyone asking themselves the question, I wonder how so-and-so is doing. I wonder how so-and-so is doing. And I attend numerous status meetings on Zoom during the week, and it's lots of fun watching all of these faces on my monitor and then having to push over to the second screen. Incidentally, today I've got 5 screens that I'm pushing across, and it's quite touching to be part and parcel of these 5 screens. But if you as the owner don't watch employee morale, and then you see slippage happening and you see people becoming more morose and not focusing on their work, in the end, your agency will suffer as well. Okay, next slide, number 9, please. So we've covered 2 principal things so far. 1, 10 immediate steps for the next 90 days. 2, we've talked about big picture, preparing for a recession. And we could say that we're already in one right now. So there are any number of items in the big picture area that you could certainly give some consideration to before you go to bed tonight. Now we're going to talk about 11 action items. And there may be some redundancies in these slides, but it's purposeful because I'm trying to hit home on the importance of certain areas. And so here we go with the first thing. When we talked about comparing your payroll against the AGI in earlier slides, that's one thing. But to constantly keep an eye on your payroll is the other thing. Moving forward, if you see your payroll being a constant and your AGI dropping, you have no other choice but to manage that payroll cost down. Now, there is one small exception, that you are with so much money in the bank at your agency, and you could stand to lose money for the next 18 months, sure, do nothing. But that may not necessarily be the best use of your corporate money. Just saying so. I have run into numerous advertising agencies that have a ton of manual processes in project management. And this is a perfect time for, particularly when people are at home, to improve the use of the software that they have in existence so that it can reduce the redundancy of time, the multiple touch points where staff are holding on to a project, and what a wonderful time to contact the software company to say, can you show us how to better use the scheduling and the resourcing module in our program? I also work with 5 of the software vendors in North America. They're all based out of the US. Like, I think I sent them to you, or maybe Arvind, and happy to send those back to you in the meantime. They are with amazing front end, being project management, as well as back end accounting based. And what I love about the 5 of them is everything is integrated. They do not need to create another software program to create all of the accounting, for example, in a completely independent sense.
Okay,
the 5, I'm sorry, like?
Share it with us, we will circulate it.
Super. The 5 vendors certainly do not admire me because I work with the other 4. Whenever one of them says, Vince, we would like you to stop working with the other 4. And I always ask them, if you pay me on a consulting basis each and every month for the same amount of money, I will be happy to stop working with the other 4. And so far, this is the number of vendors that have stepped up to help me out. So that's why I work with all 5 at the same time. Better creative, better briefs. How many of the agencies that are on this phone call actually don't prepare a good creative brief, and then they send their creative departments into bedlam, mayhem, tons of wasted time? So I'm not talking about finances here. I'm talking about improving the efficiencies of how you are working internally. Number 4 is a software issue as well. I have seen project notifications in emails, in Slack, in Twitter, completely outside of the software, the project management software system that's being used. Centralize, consolidate all of this information, and the more it is centralized, the less people have to look for it, the less people are not included in the thread. Make sure everything is sitting in the same house, so to speak. Many agencies may not be doing estimates. Well, commence doing estimates. Then at least you can compare your actual billable time and disbursements, with or without markup, against the estimate, and you can track the use of overage time or underage time accordingly. But if all you do is have actuals with no reference point to the originating estimate, you may not even know if you're going to be making any money or not on particular projects. And this is just to tighten things up in your shop. Next slide, please. Any number of agencies today are issuing no purchase orders. They are just receiving the vendor invoices and determining whether they should be paying them or not. It's an absolute internal control must to have purchase orders issued to your vendors. Even if it's a contractor that's going to be working 3, 4, 5 hours to you, at least issue even so much as a blank purchase order so that you know there's going to be a vendor invoice coming in. This is about cost control. Unbilled versus unbillable time. And I will give you a mathematical example. Like has issued a $30,000 estimate to me, and I sign off on it, and he commences work on redoing my website. And in the meantime, he's now got $50,000 of time on my job, and he's got $20,000 of overage. Now, is that unbilled time or is it unbillable time? So the determination of seeing what do we do with this $20,000 is going to be key in how you manage it in your financial reporting. Incidentally, there's a separate discussion I could have on write-offs, and that let's pretend that that $20,000 was not ever going to be billable. I advocate no less than 6 different categories of write-offs so that Like can go back to his agency and say, we constantly write off time because a certain creative director ignores what the estimate directive is and decides to do things on his or her own. Well, is that acceptable to the management of the company? Is it acceptable to the company? Projects into programs. Many agencies today rely on doing project work for clients. And this is a new business issue. This is particularly a relevant new business issue for today. Consider talking to your clients that you're doing project work with and turn them into specific programs. If you're a true marketer, you should be able to do so. Number 9 is new ideas. You should be an idea factory all the time with your clients. Number 10 is, especially now, continue to do new business like crazy. And I would add on a very pinpointed, specific, directed level, because if it's the restaurant industry that you want to go after from a new business, consider only taking on takeout restaurants that are actually earning income right now. The number 11 point has to do with when we were in a recession as opposed to the situation we're in right now. I've asked everyone to take a look at the next 3 months. I would anticipate a question saying, well, would things be better from July 1st on? And on an unsolicited basis, I'm asking everyone to say, we're going to recalibrate and do this all over again for July, August, and September. I'm not having any of my plans plan out any more than 3 months at a time because people can see 90 days. It's not the easiest thing to see until December 31st right now. But under normal circumstances, constantly be vigilant about taking care of your forecast for the rest of the year. Okay, that was 11 action items. We move to 5 tips for stability. And these are, and you don't see money in much of this slide, be visible. We talked earlier about you can decide to run and hide, or you can be prominent in your community, in your city, in your state, even at the national level. And why not at the international level, seeing as this is a crisis of epic proportions internationally. Focus on the core needs of your clients, not on your core needs. We talked about coming up with new ideas as an idea factory earlier. Suggest solutions. And if there's a time right now with your staff that they historically have just been order takers to your clients, why not have them go 180 degrees, turn around and go to their clients and say, hi, I've got these ideas given the project work we've just completed. Continue to go after new business. I'm sure some of you have said to yourselves, take a chill pill. And what I mean by taking a chill pill, I work out regularly each and every day. Notwithstanding the fact that my wine consumption is up 100%, but I work out every day because that way I can maintain perspective and say to myself, the sky is not falling. And in order to maintain that level of stability, I'm helping my own organization prepare for the next chapter of what's going to happen this year. Slide 13, please. As you take away some of these comments, I have run into too many agencies that don't have the courage to lay off, to terminate, to stop paying staff because it's too painful to themselves to make that decision. And for those of you that are having to sign the check and watch your bank account dwindle each and every day, payroll is the controllable factor, sales are the uncontrollable factor. As the owner, you are responsible for making the difficult decisions. You're also responsible for making the most difficult decisions. So I really wanted to highlight the issue on payroll because it is the biggest outlay in your company. Next slide, please. So we're going to jump to 4 prudent ideas on how to avert disaster, and you'll see that it was interconnected to what I spoke about earlier. Think twice about entering into any long-term obligations. And like, if you're even thinking about getting that Bentley tomorrow afternoon, I'd probably think 3 times, okay? In the olden days, we used to do something called pinching pennies. Well, I think the vernacular has returned. And in many cases, if it is saving $10 or $15 in a week by no longer buying lunches for your staff, then that's $60 a month or $720 in a year. That's certainly relevant. Today, more than ever, cash is king. Strangely enough, in North America, some establishments no longer take cash. They only prefer to take debit or credit, like cashless society-based. Cash is still king, and it speaks loudly throughout the entire world. For those of you that have a wonderful relationship with the bank, historically wonderful financial statements, solid balance sheet, and you do have a line of credit, use the line of credit as an absolute last resource, because the banks are not that friendly when they don't see the line of credit being paid back in a period of time. And some of you may have no other choice but to use a line of credit. I'm not a big fan of using line of credits for working capital. And the principal reason why I use a line of credit is if your clients are paying you on a sporadic basis, but you know for sure, you have the assurance that the clients will pay you, certainly have that line of credit. We have 200 plus agencies here. How many agencies know for sure they're going to be collecting their receivables 100% over the next 90 days? Next slide, please. I have 5 thoughts for final advice, and I hope that I have not bored any of you, and I do apologize if any of this has been boring. I'm very passionate about the industry, and having been in it for over 30 years, I have seen virtually everything, yet there are always some new things that have come about. What hasn't stopped happening though is new business, selling, staying focused as a marketing professional, and where you may want to consider these 3 bullet points as you approach either prospects or existing clients. Ask yourself or ask them these questions in order to show that you have interest in doing business with them. Show that you are not just merely a marketing service, that you are in fact a marketing partner. And this may require a little bit of analysis for you to be able to understand the nature of your prospective client as well. And in doing so, here's where your marketing company can certainly work in harmony and in partnership with their sales and marketing division. Next slide, please. Certainly, never more than before, as well as during the recessions, marketing truly counts this time around. I'm seeing some spectacular 30-second videos on YouTube, 15 seconds on Instagram. Certainly, I'm seeing all kinds of advertising in Facebook, heart-rendering advertising, relevant advertising. So When I say agencies need to help clients find strategies that don't involve cutting prices, but talking about customer value and retaining and growing customer loyalty. For many of you, that is certainly motherhood. And in motherhood, I mean, you should already know this intrinsically. I'm just trying to reinforce it for all of you. This presentation ideally should have happened at the very end of March, and we're into the first week of April. I'm being emphatic about this. Do not wait to cut expenses, because as you do your cash flow and you watch that money leave your bank each and every month, the last thing you want to have is no money in the bank in June, and still with the hope that the government will bail you out. I don't know. I don't have a touch, feel, and smell for the Indian government. The next point has to do with, don't just know your client, know your client's clients. And if you have that kind of insight, boy, oh boy, will you be invaluable to your client. The easiest thing to do is not to go and spend tons of time with new business opportunities. If you've got some trusted clients, if they trust you emphatically, they've done business with you for a long time, it's ideal to go after them to improve your cash flow, particularly if you're already doing business with them and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like the last slide, please. We are very touched to spend some time with all of you today. And the time has never been more important than now to really pay attention to the operations of your company. And at this stage, I think we open the floor to questions, Like?
Yes, we do. I do have some questions already, so I will keep throwing it to you. And the first question, so I'm combining 2, 3 of them, so I'm not necessarily taking names here. Cash is king, and it's great to sit on cash, but yeah, it's better said than done. So how should I manage my cash reserves during a recession time? If I don't even have the necessary cash reserves, should I really go out and take a business loan or line of credit, or what do you think I should be doing? You part answered it, but the whole point is saying that, okay, yeah, how do I manage my cash reserves?
The focus on watching your cash, or really watching your outlays, literally from a daily basis, is how much do you have to spend to get by each and every month? And then if you are with a shortfall because you really don't have a touch, feel, and smell on the collection of your receivables, do you even have the opportunity to obtain a bank loan? I mean, in India, can you borrow money for working capital?
It's very difficult. You have to give your you have to keep your guarantees in place.
That's correct. So are you prepared to have personal guarantees in light of you having this cash shortfall? If you don't have a lot of money to begin with, you're into another discussion together about more so pure survival. And it may mean that you have a temporary layoff with any number of staff, because it would be easier for them to get government assistance on an unemployed level than for you to continue to pay out full salaries. Conversely, if you're able to talk to your staff to say, we're all taking pay cuts of anywhere from 20 to 50% for the next 3 months, and we expect everyone to continue to work, at least everyone's working, you're not having to borrow money from the bank, you are doing your best to manage the precious little cash that you do have. And like, to that point, if you don't have the cash flow, you then have to think laterally that many more ways in order to keep the little cash that you do have, without anticipating the promise of what a bank may or may not do.
Yeah, or else sell with a vengeance.
With a vengeance.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, just to finish the point, here you are having to worry about that. And if you're the owner of the agency and you're supposed to be in charge of new business, I can see the wine consumption increasing 200%, but that's another story.
Yeah. Do you see a threat in the job of professionals working in the industry during this time?
I'm not clear on your question.
Do you see a threat of the jobs of professionals in the industry during this point of time?
I think that a lot of people have given some thought to how are employees working from home. I have a live example right now in the States. An agency that is a strat firm was faced with expanding to much larger office premises all before this. And they were going to have to quadruple the rent. And in doing so, when all of this happened and they sent all of their staff home, they said, I think what we're going to do is change the way in which we do business from an in the office standpoint. We'll have the creative department come in 2 or 3 times a week. We'll have the account services people come in 2 or 3 times a week, overlapping, and we'll have the whole agency in once a week. And then there won't be the strain on the small office that they've got. The threat issue is you will be threatened if you don't do the most amazing job, that which you were hired for, because there are so many people prepared to walk in to do that job remotely today. It's not funny. So I'm giving you 2 answers at the same time.
Yeah, but there's this other aspect which says saying that okay, you can, yeah, it's pretty easy said than done in terms of sell like hell, but how will the prospects take it? I'm saying because they're going through a torrid time themselves, and if you contact them during these difficult times, how will they receive you? What should be your sales strategy be? What should be your pitch be to them? Because you try going and doing a hard sell at them at this point of time, they're not interested to even listen to you because they don't even have consumers transacting with them at this point of time.
And that's correct and that's accurate. When I meant sell like hell, it's more the understand your audience, make sure you know what you're presenting, selling accordingly, and you don't want to be pushy, particularly at this time. You need to be sensitive. You need to be aware of what the client's going through. You need to be compassionate. Certainly, we all have to continue to do business moving forward. But because it's all new, like the way in which you will be continuing to do prospecting will in itself change, because you're going to be doing a little bit of hit and miss to see what does work and certainly what does not work. But if and I have received phone calls myself from people as if there's no pandemic happening right now, and the last thing I'm going to be giving is that person any time to listen to that the pitch that they have.
Got it. So with this COVID impact and stuff like that, do you think a paradigm shift is going to happen in the advertising pattern? Do you think how is mainstream going to survive? Do you think digital is going to kick in? I believe that the new world order is already settled. We're in a new world order already. That's why we have connected with you who are sitting in Canada, and we're trying to do, help the world.
Recap, no, now.
So, what's your take? Is there a new paradigm shift is going to get set in this particular industry?
We have some interesting times ahead of us. There are a number of old people in North America, and I'm not saying that North America is super old, but strangely enough, there has been an uptick in television, and as a result, an uptick in television advertising. And I thought that was quite funny because so many people are not watching TV anymore. They're watching Netflix or some other competitors. And then on the flip side, I'm seeing so many people no longer talking to each other because they're just on their phones all the time. And the ability to write a sentence is another story altogether. So I'm seeing a blend of all of that. certainly we are going to be shifting into an interesting world in the coming 7-8 months, is my thought, Mike.
Yeah. And again, coming back to the question saying that, okay, yes, you need to take care of your employees. You need to probably look at salary cuts and stuff like that. But how do you keep them motivated and how do you keep them healthy during this particular period?
The key group of employees is always the one that will rally around the company, and it is constant. And the direct answer is, if you are experts at communications to your clients, you're going to have to learn very quickly to become experts at communicating internally to your staff. And the more you keep them aware of what's happening internally within enough transparency, the more they will be reassured that, oh my goodness, I'm going to be here tomorrow, I'll still be paid. And for you to say nothing as an owner leaves a great big hole in what the employees are supposed to be thinking, because the minute they start having these thoughts in their head, they're certainly not going to be focused at being super productive for your company.
Yeah. There is another interesting question here which says, how tricky is the invoices for retainer clients for lockdown periods? Because clients, they're not even going to office. Customers are not transacting with them. So what do agencies do? You be lenient with these invoices, or how do you deal with such kind of scenarios?
I mean, in North America, while everyone is working at home, they're expected to be productive at home. And the industry has largely moved electronically, including client invoices are being electronically sent, client vendor payments are being electronically paid. So if there's a way for you to electronify the digital transfer of funds, look towards that, particularly in India. And again, I can't speak to how funds are being transferred. Or are you saying to me you are hugely still in the area of paper checks? Is that how does money flow back and forth, is the question.
Yeah. Should we strike hard on clients for pending payments to maintain cash flow? What is your advice?
My approach to this is to be on a combination of understanding the compassions of the client, as well as saying, I still have bills to pay. Would you be able to give me some timing on all of this? And this is, again, that uncontrollable factor tied directly to sales. When you have taken care of how much it's going to cost you each and every month, and then secondarily say to your clients, what's the timing of this payment, at least you're controlling essentially what you can control. You cannot control when a client will pay you. So if you strike hard, you run the risk of really upsetting the client, as well as them saying to you, we're actually delaying payment even longer because you are irritating us. So you have to particularly now, you've got to delicately but firmly approach that situation.
Do you have any ideas to make existing clients spend more money? Here's one question which has come up.
It's a timing. This is a timing question. Spending more money, possibly later, is at the very least of. Sorry, not the very least, but if you can get that foot in the door, then you can prepare yourself for what will be coming. Realistically, if the client is in an industry where it doesn't make much sense to spend any money right now, you're going to have a closed door in that discussion. But certainly, if the client has historically spent money in a normal economy, or even in a recession-based economy, get those thoughts and ideas into the head or the heads of these clients, and you'll be first and foremost on their minds moving forward. And by the way, that's called paying it forward as well, in terms of you giving time back to these people with no expectations that they will spend money tomorrow.
Correct. And see, our problem is Indians are a lot more emotional than people from the West, and we think a lot, and we are emotionally a lot more invested into our people, invested into our ecosystem and stakeholders. So it becomes an even more difficult thing for us to cut payrolls and drop off employees. And any advices on that particular front?
Yeah, I get the emotion part. I totally get the emotion part, because in many regards, you're almost saying this is partially like family that you have to disengage yourself with. And on the flip side is this: for those of you that have money in the bank, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and go, just how many months am I prepared to lose money so that I can keep the family together? And some of you may have that luxury. Others will have the following. They may want to keep the family together. They don't have the cash. And what's the next alternative? Close the doors. And then they've just basically burned Rome.
Yeah. So that's it. I think we will end with that. And thank you so much, Vincent. And anybody has any more questions, I think you should go to the Facebook Live chat comment sections and enter it there. And I'm sure Vincent will come there and address your questions. So if you have any queries, you can go there and enter your questions there in the comment section of the live feed.
Incidentally, for those of you that are still on, I am 9.5 hours behind all of you. So I don't expect to respond at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, so they can post in their questions now, and you get all the time to. Before going to sleep, they will post their questions.
Sure, of course. Okay, everyone, thank you very, very, very much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, so before I hand over to Tina to give the closing remarks, I just wanted to again request everybody to take in the survey links, what I've posted earlier. Request all of you to give your point of views, perspectives in terms of where you need help. We are trying to do that survey to collect your opinions and gather it and go back to the government and decision makers to see what support we need from them. So look forward to all of you taking that survey and giving us feedback. And I hope the session was helpful for all of you. Yeah, so thank you, Vincent. Over to you, Tina.
Thanks all for participating today. And I have to say 126 at top count, and we had another 11 on the Facebook. So thank you so much for coming in. I'm going to quickly tell you some of the important things that Vincent asked us to follow. And of course, like he said, COVID-19 is going to be the most unforgettable word of 2020. We all know that and how. But he said if there was one thing we could take away, it was going to be great. But I think there are lots that we've taken away today. And I'm just going to recap some of these because that was a long webinar and some of you would like to take away some of these from here. So immediately, what are the things we can look at? Let's look at our finance statements that we haven't really looked at possibly in a while. Let's ask for those profit loss statements. Let's look at what our monthly outlays are immediately in terms of salaries and overheads, and how much can we curtail out of this? What can we defer going from now onwards till about June for 3 months after this? And that was a very good suggestion from his side to say, let's see if we can defer rent and say we can pay by after 3 months and things. If you have a good landlord, excellent, you can go for that as well. The salary cuts, when it comes to it, I know it's a question on everybody's head today, but it's an important one to note that the owner must take the first salary cut and the biggest one, because when things do revive, you need your people by your side, and that's the time you really don't want to have lost any of them because of salary. He also introduced us to the adjusted gross income, which is excellent for us as a number here in India to monitor, and we learned about the 50, 30, and 20%. So your overhead salaries up to 50%, overheads up to 30%, and your profit should be at least 20. If you can increase your profits to 30 at any time, of course, that would be great. Most importantly, it's a time when everybody and agency owners really should be calm and looking at this, looking through this and passing this phase, being most unflappable, most innovative, and being around, being inspiring, being the big picture of inspiration for our people. And that's a critical one. Overall, yes, the sensitivity analysis he touched upon as to how we can look at numbers and see how much of that still stands in today's milieu. Then coming to the client specific things, I think like said, Vincent has overemphasized, it is the time for us to really go out and suggest as many ideas as we can to clients, to go out and get more out of existing clients, look at how we can help solve their problems in the most innovative ways, and let's try and do that. He gave us a lot of action items that we can do immediately. And some of these were related to operations. How can we use better tools to get the number of hours being spent with today internally in terms of billable time, etc. And I think it's important to improve operations, tighten operations, and possibly look at how we can make the most of the resources we have today and get stuff done better. As he said, this is the time really to be visible and go get as much new business as we can. Look at things from the client's perspective, because getting sales is not uncontrollable. You can still control that to some extent, but your payroll, like he said, is the controllable bit. So these are the few things. His final advice was cut expenses today. Know your clients better than you ever did before, and let's see how we can sell with a focus like never before. So with that, Vincent, I'd really like to say thank you so much. You've been wonderful to agree to this and to do this, especially for our agencies in Bangalore. Absolutely wonderful to have you here. And I have to say, we're the first ad club in the country to have taken an initiative on this and roll it out really quickly for our members and non-members. So those of you who are not members yet, please visit us at adclubbangalore.net, and this is the time to be involved with the fraternity and do our best. Last but not the least, I'd like to thank our community sponsors, Exchange for Media, Pitch, and Impact, for helping us with the outreach, and because of which we had so many registrations today, as well as Young Indians. They are strategic partners for today. The management committee of the Ad Club Bangalore would really like, I'd like to thank all of them for really coming forth with full support. And all of us collectively would like to thank all of you participants for registering, being present here. Thank you so much, and keep in touch, stay connected with us. Thank you again, Vincent.
Thank you, Vincent. Thanks a lot.
Bye all. We'll see you. It's time to log off now.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks.